This is Module 4, Lesson 6, using order of operations and expressions. First thing is to remind you that when you have an expression, it is something that does not have an equal sign. Equations have an equal sign, expressions do not. And an expression, you simplify it or you evaluate it. Those are the two things you do. So the first thing is we're going to look at this tape diagram, and we want to figure out how to write an expression so that we can figure out what the question mark is. So the first thing is that we notice that the whole entire tape diagram is worth 9 plus 11. So we're going to write that on the side. And then we notice we want to find a piece. And the piece we want to find is right here. And we notice that the whole thing is split into 4 pieces, but we only want to find 3 of those 4 pieces. So this is 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces, 4 pieces. And we want to find these 3 pieces. So we are trying to find 3/4 of the whole thing. So we're going to find 3/4 of tells me to multiply. So 3/4 of 9, the sum of 9 and 11. So when I look at this, the first thing I need to do is I need to simplify it by doing what's in the parentheses, the order of operations. So this becomes 20. And I carry down everything else and I don't use an equal sign. And then when I look at this, I can solve 3/4 of 20 the same way we've been doing it since the beginning of the module. So I can say 20 divided by 4 is 5, and then 5 times 3 is 15, and my answer is 15. So this piece right here is 15. That's what my question mark was. Here's another example set up a different way. This time the question mark is we want to figure out what the whole entire thing is. So we know a piece. So we're going to write that piece. We're going to write that we want to find the difference between 1/3 and 1/4. And we have to figure that out since that's just this piece and we wanted the whole thing. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. So we need to solve that 5 times. Now, first thing we notice back to our last module, we can't subtract 1/3 minus 1/4 because they're different denominators or different units. So we have to make like units. Notice we never write an equal sign. Then we have to do what's in parentheses first, which will give us our 1/12. And we're going to multiply 1/12 of 5. So 1/12 of 5, we have to figure that out over here, and we end up with 5/12. So next, sometimes they're given the words, we have the word form, and we have to turn that into an expression. So the first thing says the product of 4 and 2. Product tells me to multiply, and that we're going to then divide it by 3. In this case, I have to put parentheses because I need to know to divide the whole product by 3 and not just 2. So I end up with the 8 divided by 3. And as we learned earlier this week, 8 divided by 3 is 8/3 because it's 8 and this line here means divided by 3. Well, I can't leave it as an improper fraction, so I have to turn it into a mixed number, and I get 2 and 2/3. So if you notice, I never put an equal sign between 8/3 and 2 and 2/3. Sometimes I have 2 expressions and they want me to compare them, but I have to figure out the expressions first. I have to simplify them down. So right here, 2 divided by 3 will give me 2/3 times 4. And just like we learned before, we can multiply. 4/3 doubled means to multiply by 2. That also gets me to 8/3. So now I see 8/3 and 8/3, and I know that they are equal. When I come down here, it's a little different. 2 divided by, in the parentheses is 3 times 4, that's 12. And 2 divided by 12, I can leave it like that, or I can change it to 1/6, either way. And then over here, I multiply straight across and I get 8/3, which I know is 2 and 2/3. And 2 and 2/3, because it has a whole number, is greater than 2/12. Here's some more that we can compare. We have 4 copies. That means 4 times the sum of 1/3 and 1/3. So now we have 4 times 2/3, and we end up with 8/3, just like before. Over here, we have 2/3 times 4, which is also 8/3. So once again, we end up right here with something that's equal. Now down here on the bottom, I'm going to scroll that up a little, we have 1/8 the sum, which means 1/8 of, which tells me to multiply, the sum, which is 6 and 14. Sum tells me to add. So I do 1/8 times, and that's 20. And then I come up with an answer of 20/8. I'm going to come over here. I get 20 divided by 8, which is 20/8. And they are equal. Here's some more. We once again have 4 times 8/3, which would be 32/3. And this is 4 times the quotient of 3 and 8. Quotient tells me to divide. So I have 4 times 3/8, which would give me 12/8. So if I change these to mixed numbers to make them easier to compare, I see that over here I have 10 and 2/3. And over here I have 1 and 4/8. And since this has a whole number of 10, I know that is larger. So once again, we're going to try the next one. Subtract 2 from 1/2 of 9. So 1/2 of 9, subtract 2 from that. So if I take this and solve it like I know, I have 9/2 minus 2. And when we have a whole number, we've always said that if we wanted to, we can put it over 1. So now when I try to change this into a common denominator, this stays 9/2, and this becomes 4/2, and I end up with 5/2. And then over here, I have 11/2 minus 2 over 1. So if I change it, I have 11/2 minus 4 over 2. In that case, I have 7/2. So 5/2 or 7/2, I know that 7/2 is larger. So here's some more examples from the problem set today that if we needed to write some expressions and to simplify them. So in this case, once again, we want to find a piece. So we are taking the sum of the whole thing, and it's being split into 1, 2, 3 pieces. So I want to divide it by 3, or another way to say that is that I can multiply it by 1/3. I want to figure out 1/3 of that. So I get 17 times 1/3, and I get 17/3, which is equal to 5 and 2/3. And then over here, it's just like the other example we had done, is that we have 3/5 and 1/2 times 3. We want to do that 3 times. So first we have to find a common denominator, which we know will be 10. So this is 5/10 and this is 6/10 times 3. And we have 11/10 times 3. And we end up with 33/10, which is 3 and 3/10. Notice I never put it in an equal sign. Here we have 1/6 the sum of 16 and 20. So we have 1/6 of the sum of 16 and 20. So first we do what's in parentheses, which will get us to 36. And then we solve this, which will give me 36/6. And then my answer is 6. And then over here, we're going to subtract 5 from, so we're going to put at the end, 1/3 of 23. So we have to do this first. We end up with 23/3, and we subtract 5. And we had talked about if we want to do this, we have to make common denominators. So if I want to make a common denominators, I have to know that there's a 1 under there. So then I have 23/3. And if I change this to a 3, I have to multiply the top by 3 also. And when I subtract that, I get 8/3, which is equal to 2 2/3. This one is 3 times as much, so 3 times as much as the sum of 3/4 and 2/6. Find common denominators again, which is 12 in this case. And then we end up with 3 times 13/12. Because I'm at the bottom, I'm going to move over to the side in a different color pen so you can see it. And I end up with 39/12, which then has me ending up with 3, which will get me to 36 and 3/12. And I can simplify it to 3 1/4. We also have 2/5 of the product of 5/6 and 42. So we want 2/5 of the product. Product tells me to multiply of 5/6 and 42. So when I go to solve this one, I'm going to leave my 2/5 for now. I can do this where I go 42 divided by 6 is 7, and 7 times 5 is 35. And then down here I can say 35 divided by 5 is 7, and 7 times 2 is 14. I'm going to skip through this next part and show an example of this one, where we have to circle the expressions that have the same product as 4/5 times 7. Well, first I have to figure out 4/5 times 7, which is 28/5, which could also be 5 and 3/5. So now I'm going to check all of them. So here we have 4 divided by 7/5. Sorry, I apologize. 4 divided by 35, which gives me an answer of 4/35. We know that's not equal to 5 and 3/5. Here we have 7 divided by 5 times 4, and when we do that we get 28/5. We know that this matches what's up there. Here we have 28 divided by 5, which gives me 28/5, which also matches what's up there. Here we have 4 divided by 35, which is 4/35, which does not match. Here we have 28/8, which then gets us to 3 4/8, which does not match. And here we have 28/5, which we already know matches. So that's an example of how to solve that problem. So here are different ways for solving order of operations.